Hello, everybody. It's time for another interview. And today, would you believe it? Holy stacko. Look who it is next to me. It's Mike King, creator, star of Starship Valiant. Hey, Mike, how you doing?
Doing good. How are you?
Oh, I'm doing all right. Recovering from a late night of Assassin's Creed Black Flag. Now, let's get talking right about Valiant here. There might be some people who haven't watched the vignette episode yet, your debut called Legacy. So for those folks, maybe do you want to fill them in a bit on Starship Valiant and Legacy and what it's all about?
Sure. Starship Valiant is based upon the original Star Trek series and takes place around the third season of the original series. It's a show that was inspired by Starship Exeter. I was a really, really big fan of Starship Exeter and Star Trek Phase 2, James Cawley's series. And I wanted to do a Star Trek series, but what I saw in a lot of the fan films was what I perceived was a lack of focusing on the characters. Mm-hmm. A lot of the times I saw films as, phaser fights, laser fight, or ship fights. And I just wanted to do one that was focused solely on the people. I wanted to make people as real as we could. So Starship Valiant came about, and I thought it was a great opportunity to have some characters that had some real life issues that we have today. I wanted it to be very, very grounded. I wanted people to watch it and be able to say, oh, okay, yeah, I've been through that. Mm-hmm. I know how that feels. So basically the film, I would say, is a grittier version of the original series, where it's just more realistic, not as optimistic as Gene Roddenberry's series. I think that from my standpoint, Valiant is a show about the faults that people have, but at the same time trying to reverse those faults and trying to be as good as we can be, trying to better ourselves.
Mm-hmm. So it follows in Roddenberry's tradition that way, but it's a little, you're not black hat, white hat like he was.
Yeah, that's one thing I've always liked about the original series, is the fact that there's conflict with the characters. Mm-hmm. The characters weren't perfect, and that's part of the charm for me for the original series, is that the series is more realistic to me than, say, The Next Generation or Voyager. And I would say that as far as the newer series are concerned, Deep Space Nine probably touches on the closest to, that conflict of human beings being, I mean, it's like Kirk said in the original series in Where No Man Has Gone Before, when Gary Mitchell was getting all those godlike powers. Mm-hmm. He told the psychiatrist, the ugly things that we keep inside that we dare not expose. But who's to stop Mitchell from doing it? So, there's a lot of things as far as being humans that we do have inside that aren't good things. But I think what Valiant says and what Star Trek, the original series, says is that we don't have to be controlled by those things, that we can move on and be better. Mm-hmm. And that's the focus of Valiant. It's a focus on the characters and the issues they go through. We're trying to make Valiant very character driven. It's always going to be about the people. And I mean, we're in the Star Trek universe, so there's going to be starships and phaser fights and this and that, but it's our goal to focus on the people first.
Yeah, okay. Yeah, it's good. It's a little bit of a different tact in, it's a better tact in some ways, with the character development. You always have to have character development, and if you don't pay attention to that, your show dies. There's, people lose interest. You can't have two-dimensional characters.
At one time, when I was making the series, our original first episode was one called Desperation, and it took place in space on the ship. We had aliens and all this, and it was the first episode. But then I stepped back and looked at it, and I thought, instead of starting this show out in space with this cast of strangers, why don't we just kind of show where they're coming from, who they are. And we focused on Bishop and we focused on Kennedy to show a little bit about who they are as people. Mm-hmm. And response to Bishop and the situation with his daughter and all that's been really, really well received, especially from military veterans who feel that, that understanding that, hey, Dad's away, he's not here. And we've really got some really, really wonderful comments from people in the military. And that was a part of the film that I really wanted to focus on, to show, how the family back here deals with the officer being gone. Because all the time you hear from, soldiers being gone, but you never hear too much about how the families are dealing with it. And I thought that one thing that Star Trek has never done is dealt with, we see these people in space, a 5-year mission. Well, do they have lives at home? Do they have family? How are their family dealing with this while they're gone? I mean, does Kirk have family members that have passed away while he's out in deep space? Does he get to go to their funerals? I mean, So I just thought that was something that hadn't been tapped on in fan films yet. And I wanted to show, what happens when these officers are out in space, helping to save mankind and furthering the ideas of the United Federation of Planet. What about the people at home?
Yeah, what they sacrifice as well. Yeah.
And, there has to be a lot of strife between some of the family members. You would think, well, I don't see my dad. He's never around. So, I just thought, in honor of, what our military does, they do such a big job. I wanted to show, I want to focus a little bit on what they go through. And it's not easy for anyone all the way around. And it's just the response from veterans has been really, really nice. As a matter of fact, I don't know if you knew, but the helm officer in Legacy, when it first comes on, is actually a retired U.S. Navy officer.
Oh, no, I didn't know. What's his name?
Yeah. Gary Foster.
Gary Foster.
He served in the
Gary.
U.S. military. Yeah, and he actually is the father of our director.
Oh, wow.
And he asked Brady, our director, hey, you think it'd be okay if you think Mike would mind if I appear? And he's a Star Trek fan. And I was like, oh yeah, heck yeah.
Cool.
So I was really, really honored to have him in the film.
That's great. That's really great. Now, what made you choose Valiant in particular, the ship to stage your series with?
Well, that's a frustrating story in itself. It's just that I wanted one of the original 13 starships. Now, of course, Enterprise is already taken. Then there's Farragut and Potemkin. And I didn't want to use any names from any of the other ships, even though we could have said, well, we're in a different universe, we're in a different time period or whatever. But I wanted to be respectful of the fan films that came out before Valiant. So watching some of the original series episodes, I went through and watched some, and of course, in Where No Man Has Gone Before, they mentioned an SS Valiant that was destroyed. And then in A Taste of Armageddon, they mentioned that in background noise, I believe it was background noise, they didn't really say too much about it. They might have mentioned, actually, I think they did mention the Valiant had come to a Meteor 7 and was destroyed by the people there. Now, that was 50 years before the Enterprise got there, so we can assume that it wasn't a Constitution-class starship. So I just kind of went on the basis that, well, we've had 2 Valiants destroyed. Maybe Starfleet would honor the crew of those ships and make another Valiant. So we chose the Valiant because, and originally I wanted the Pegasus because of the original Battlestar Galactica series. There was an episode called what was that episode? It was Legend. I don't remember the name of it, but it had Lloyd Bridges as Commander Kane.
Okay.
And I knew it had legendary something in the title, but he commanded another Battlestar called the Pegasus that had survived throughout all this time when the colonies were destroyed. The Living Legend, that was the name of it.
Okay.
And I was just such a big fan of that show and the heroic nature that Lloyd Bridges brought to the character and the ship and all that I wanted to use the Pegasus. But then I found out in Franz Joseph's technical manual that the Pegasus is already another starship, so I couldn't use that. So we went with Valiant, and I was a little bit underwhelmed at first with the name Valiant because it just wasn't what I wanted to use. But after a while, it really, really grew on me, and I thought Valiant, that's just a really heroic and pretty kick-ass name. And then, of course, it was the name of my hometown, too. So I thought, yeah, that's kind of cool. We'll stick with Valiant. And Richard Wells, also, the CEO at Starbase Studios, helped me research the name. And he was like, hey, man, I've searched the name Valiant. I've watched the show, and it's only using those two references. Nobody else has used it. Now, there is a Star Trek Valiant, which is a web series.
Mm-hmm.
And at the time, I didn't know about that. I found out about it later. But when I did, we got in production, and I thought, well, that's Star Trek Valiant. It's a different ship, a different class of ship, so we'll be okay.
Yeah.
And I've actually never heard from anyone in that show, saying, hey, you can't use this name or anything. But
no, and I've stumbled across that one myself, and they're fan film and all that. It's pretty much shot in their living room and stuff like that. They don't seem like they're going to be too uptight about sharing a name, put it that way.
Yeah, I don't know if they're still in production or not.
I don't either.
They made quite a few episodes, I believe, didn't they?
I don't know if they made a lot. I've seen just the one, really. And that was actually a while back when I was looking up your show. I forget what I was looking up, and it was like a year ago or something, but I came across theirs.
That's how I found theirs, from doing a search for Valiant, and came across theirs.
Oh, man. Now let's see, what do I have here? I have more questions. Oh, yeah. So, from the concept, you're like, I know I want to make a indie Trek series, till the day you actually release the vignette Legacy. How long did that take you?
We started, conception of Starship Valiant was back in September of 2013. And we actually had the first vignette completed in June 27th. Actually, on June 27th, when it was all put together, 2015. And I've heard a lot of people say, man, that's pretty quick for, just starting the film and then finishing the film. We probably could have actually filmed it faster, except there was, we have a volunteer staff, and, people have families and jobs, and so we had to work around a lot of people. And we actually, Kelly Wisco, who played Lisa Kennedy, was actually the third actress to play her.
Wow. So
we went through two other actresses, and before we found her. Now, granted, I believe she was the best person for that role, because she just brings so much to it. She's so commanding. And she's actually an actress, has done a few films.
Always helps.
But she just, I remember when we premiered the film at SoonerCon last year, I was up at SoonerCon and I was waiting on Brady to bring the film. He was doing some last minute editing on the film, and it was like, God, we got there maybe like 15 minutes before we were supposed to show it is when he got there.
Wow.
So he looked, he'd been up all night. He just looked like he was just wore down. He'd been up all night working on the film. He was having all kind of computer problems. He'd done a lot. He's a photographer by trade. He's a professional photographer, and he's been in film pretty much all his adult life, but he'd never done, special effects and anything that extensive on his home computers, and it was really just putting a real heavy load on him, and he was having all kind of errors, and it was just one error after the next, and he's just like, wow, man, any other time I'm not having these problems, but we got this deadline, and so he really, he bless his heart, he did a great job, though.
Yeah, I stuck to it with the 11th hour crisis, huh?
It was just like Star Trek the Motion Picture when it premiered. They delivered the film the day it was supposed to be shown, and then I was like, yeah.
I didn't know that. That is cutting it far too close.
Yeah, that was a little, and the people at SoonerCon were like, well, where's your movie? Is it coming?
Oh no.
We made it, but it was close.
Now, yeah, speaking of footage and such like that, I understand you have a clip to share with us. You want to set that up?
In this scene, Bishop is confronting Lieutenant Torres, who was there on the ship before they got home. And during the battle, she lost her fiance. And the interesting thing about this scene is that it was inspired kind of by the episode Balance of Terror, where Kirk had fought the Romulans, defeated the Romulans, and the only casualty was a young woman who lost her fiance. And I wanted to put references to the original series in Valiant, but I didn't want to do it kind of fanboyishly where there's just, it's just made for fans, because that's not what we wanted to do. But this is a scene where Bishop discusses with Torres the fact that her fiance is gone.
Okay. Hey, let's check it out.
You brought us home. Thank you, sir.
Ensign Torres,
Yes, sir.
I'm sorry about Lieutenant Taylor. He was a good man.
Yes, sir, he was. So close to getting married. It's been an honor serving with you, sir.
The honor was all mine.
All right, now I know everybody's got to be a little excited after that scene to know what about the next episode? Do you have any release plans?
Well, we don't have a release date. It's my hope that we could at least have it ready for the next SoonerCon convention here in Oklahoma City in 2016. But we do have a story that has went through 3 drafts. And Craig Fry, who does our visual effects, who did the visual effects for Legacy, is actually an accomplished writer. So I wrote the first draft of the story, then it went to Brady, our director. He wrote a draft of it. And we had a meeting, and there's things about the story that, he likes and I likes, and we decided, well, why don't we give this story to Craig and see what he comes up with. And Craig just finished his draft about 3 days ago, and I'm actually in the process of reading it. And so far from what I've seen or read, it's a pretty good story. It'd probably be an hour episode. It would be a part 1 of a 2-part story. We've mentioned that it's called The Ties That Bind, and it's a story about family. It's a story that covers the pitfalls of blind faith. It's a very, very dark story. It's something that fan films that I've seen so far haven't really covered. Star Trek has certainly covered this issue before, but probably not as dark as we have. And I seem to be more of an emotional writer. I think that I write more of based on what we would do, how we would feel about things today. I appreciate the fact that Star Trek is very optimistic, but at the same time, today's world, when I see how religion affects a lot of things today in the world, when I see how, race relations are in the world, it's unconscionable to me that I wouldn't be making Valiant if I didn't have anything to say with it.
Right.
It's not something that I'm just doing just to, hey guys, look at the ship, look at these visual effects. I wanted to do something that, has a meaning.
Yeah.
Because to me, the best Star Trek had a moral.
Of course.
So I wrote a story that is saying something about today's world. And I think that from what I've read, his adaptation of the story so far, he pretty much captured what I was trying to do. And hopefully we will start shooting the story. I'm hoping maybe 3 to 4 months. It may even be, March of next year because, Starbase Studios doesn't have where the facility is located, it doesn't have heat or air. So you're either going to be, if you can do it in the spring, that's probably the best time. But, if you can't, we filmed Legacy when it was like maybe, actually when we first started, I think it was like maybe as low as 30 degrees outside.
Mm-hmm. Wow.
And we actually had to place space heaters in front of us so that our breath wouldn't show when we're talking. But yeah, and we might end up getting a better building in time, but right now it's the best we can do.
Yeah.
But, so we ideally we would like to shoot in the spring when it's not hot or cold, but sometimes it can't be helped. But I think our next episode is really going to be exciting. I think it's a story that you won't see, very often. I think it touches on sensitive subjects. I think it says a lot about the world we live in today. And, I think it's a story that's going to thrill a lot of people. But thinking on that level, also, we're showing Legacy again at SoonerCon this year. I was contacted by handles the what's going to be on their menu,
Mm-hmm.
and she wanted us to play the film. So I got the idea, and no one is even aware of this yet, none of the fans. I got the idea. I said, well, Brady, we're going to show the film again. What if we add a scene that we couldn't do in Legacy, just to make it a little bit different?
Mm-hmm.
And the fact that we finally got the sick bay done
Nice.
at Starbase Studio.
Nice.
And this scene was actually a scene that I had thought of before, but when I wrote Legacy, we didn't have a sick bay, so I just wrote around what we had, which was just a bridge.
Mm-hmm.
And now that we have the sick bay, I thought, this would be a great opportunity to put that scene back in. So we actually are going to, that's mentioned in Legacy, and the only mention we got is, where Kennedy says, word from Dr. Floyd, the captain's dead.
Yeah.
We're actually going to see the captain. We're going to see the engineer that Kennedy apparently has a little bit of a problem with,
Mm-hmm.
saying that he's always wanting to change things and this and that. So we're actually going to see Captain Clark. We're going to see Engineer Menard. We're going to see Dr. Floyd.
Okay.
And it's going to be
cool.
And we've already filmed that scene about 2 weeks ago.
Cool.
Scene's been handed over to Brady. As a matter of fact, we posted kind of hints to what's coming up on the Valiant page last night. And it's going to say a lot. It's going to add a little bit more depth into, what these people are feeling and why they're feeling this way. And,
Mm-hmm.
and I think it's going to be something that's kind of nice. It's not just something that was thrown in, just to throw it in. It was something that was added.
It adds to the story. And, I'm looking forward to it because I can completely get what you're saying because the bridge scenes are so mournful and somber, and that's exactly why the scene you filmed gives the viewer, puts them right in that place. This is what they're talking about. This is part of the tragedy that happened in that battle.
Yeah, we went to Trek Atlanta for the Star Trek Fan Film Awards. Now, of course, we were nominated for Best Dramatic Short Form Story. Now, of course, we didn't win.
Congratulations.
Thank you. It went to Axanar, but there were some really, really nice things that were said about the film while we were there. And they touched on, what happens after the battle, how the people are affected. And that's another thing about Legacy. You see so many battles in Star Trek,
Mm-hmm.
so many losses of life. And I've always wondered, how are these people affected?
Mm-hmm.
Because, one episode is there, the next episode is gone.
Yeah, and they don't deal with it much. One of the only episodes I could think of that.
And I'm telling Brady, I said, Brady, I don't want the next episode to begin with, everything that happened in Legacy gone. Because, Bishop and his daughter are still at odds, so we have to carry that over and find out what happens. We're just not going to assume because Bishop says, oh, okay, we're ready for deep space, let's go, and just assume everything's, no. The daughter and Bishop's relationship will be carried over, and we kind of see them have an uneasy peace together, and we learn more about the grandfather, because I feel like family is really important.
Mm-hmm.
I think that, as human beings, we might be different colors and different nationalities and different cultures and all, but basically the one thing that keeps us all together, I think, is family. We all have family. So I think it's very, very realistically to the rest of the world, and we can focus on things that we all have. Now, whether or not you have a family that you're happy with or not,
that's another story.
that seems to be about pretty much in every family too,
Yeah. So that's why we can all relate to it.
Yeah, we're different, but at the same time, a lot of things are. Maybe some people don't want to admit, but a lot of things are the same.
A lot of them really are. So now, have you been surprised about the reception that Legacy has gotten? Because it, honestly, it's been pretty big. You really got a great reception.
I'm going to be honest with you, totally honest. There's things about a fan film, or any kind of film when you're on camera that you worry about. Brady always thought that people would be impressed with the film because he had seen quite a few fan films. And being a professional, he's a lot more aware of how things are done. Mm-hmm. And that's something that I lacked. I went in this as a writer, mm-hmm. and when we started the film, I didn't take it as seriously as I should have. I thought, well, we'll write a story. We're Star Trek fans. We'll have a good time making a film, and that's it. But as we went into the film, and Brady, who's a consummate professional, I got to say, Brady, one of the most nicest, wonderful people I've ever known. I consider myself blessed every he's just such a really wonderful. I mean, you think that is this guy real? He's just so kind but
a rare bird, huh?
He brought a level of professionalism to the film, and it was actually his idea to involve Ben Richardson, our acting coach and our editor, to be involved in the film. Now, he said, hey, we're going to do this. Do you mind if I bring in an acting coach to help with the acting? So he always wanted the film to be more than what it could have been. And then we had Ben Richardson, who edited the film. This guy, an actor, just totally busy all the time. He came in, he coached us on the acting, and we brought the film that, even after a while, I'm like, this has got to be good. We've got to make this sneak in. I remember saying over and over, Brady, we don't have the budget that some of these fan films have. We don't have the action that these fan films have. I said, but all we have is a story. And I said, even without starships and battles and all that, if you don't have a decent story, you don't have anything.
There you go. That's right.
I said, so we've got to make these people real. We've got to make them flesh and blood. We've got people to feel. We got to make these people feel for these people. So we focused on our story, and we put a lot of depth, as much depth as we could, into these people to make them real and to make people understand how they feel. And I think for the most part, people that respond, any fan, a lot of comments that people have left on fan films, and some of them are just downright cruel.
Yeah, some of them are really not cool.
I've read a comment, where people will watch a whole hour episode and say something really just unrelated and just cruel. So we kind of knew what to expect, and I'm not just a muscular guy. I have my gut and at times, and I expected people to respond to that, and so I've never been the type to be really overly sensitive and get my feelings hurt or anything like that. I mean, anybody coming into this kind of feel, you're going to get that regardless.
Well, and in defense of that, I mean, come on, it's not like there hasn't been, Dune was far bigger than you. So.
And to be honest, it never even bothered me. Never even thought about it. All I saw was Scotty.
Yeah, and there you go.
That's all that mattered to me,
character.
Scotty.
Yeah, you see the character.
And even James Doohan, I remember an interview he gave where he said, people don't care about our age. They don't care about, the way we look. All they want to see is these people working together. And, that's pretty much true.
Yeah.
So we've got a few criticisms But for the most part, the response has been overwhelmingly great.
Yeah.
People just really, love the level of professionalism that we were able to bring to the. We actually, and I have to give credit to Starship Ajax.
Mm-hmm.
John Hughes, who's an executive producer of Ajax, and J.C. England, who is also a producer of Ajax. I have to give them credit because we were able to use some of their uniforms for our production.
Cool.
The bridge was actually first put together for Starship Ajax.
Oh, okay.
And, they were always really, really helpful. And we couldn't have made the movie without them. I wrote the story, but, this is definitely not a thing that's been put together by myself. It's a lot of people who worked hard and people that I don't even know that helped to construct the bridge. As a matter of fact, the bridge itself was actually used on Starship Ajax. Yes, it actually, after Exeter wrapped the Tresarian intersection, they actually gave the bridge to John Hughes. He actually brought it up here from Texas.
Wow.
So the captain's chair and half of the bridge is actually what you see in the Exeter films, and that's kind of an honor too, because Starship Exeter, especially when they did the Tresarian intersection, they pretty much brought a totally new level to Star Trek fan films, and I think that a lot of people don't give them enough credit for what they've done.
No, they're very overlooked, surprisingly so.
And their second episode, man, I can watch that. I just watched it last week. I just loved that episode, and I love those characters.
Mm-hmm.
I'm just a fan. Some people will write me and say, "Hey, man, just a fan. I'm no more than anyone else out here, and I'm just as honored to meet anybody that's honored to meet me." And I don't even know if honored is the right word for me to, you meet me, you meet me.
There's a lot of that mutual appreciation, I think, that goes on. And, hey, man, it's better to be humble about it than to be a total jerk.
I just don't. I don't see the point. It's just we're just fans.
Yeah, you're a fan with stories to tell. You're a writer, and you guys have.
And we
meet you. I can see why and understand why. And myself, man, I've just been like fanboying out to have you on the show. So it's there, and you earned it. So. And
I appreciate that, but I've also got to say that Starship Valiant couldn't have been possible if it wasn't for all those guys that made fan films before us. And one show that I watched quite a bit was Project Potemkin.
Yeah.
Now, Randy Lander spends a lot of his own funds, and he makes, out of pocket. He pretty much said that, it's Star Trek on a budget.
Mm-hmm.
And I have so much respect for Randy for the he puts together his show. He does what he wants to do. He has
great stories.
I've been impressed with what he's put together. And he's another guy that I have a lot of respect for, and I feel like he's often, not given the credit that he's due. Because, one thing that fan films do is keep Star Trek's legacy alive. And Randy's doing a great job at that. And all these guys, you say that you have a fanboyish thing. I've never met James Cawley. I've talked to him.
Yeah, I would probably faint. I would faint right there.
I've talked to him on the phone, and he actually helped us on some of our costuming.
Right on.
And I have nothing but respect for the guy. I think he's just incredible. I would love to meet him one day. One day I will meet him. And they've always been really, really nice. Really, really nice guys, and they've always been willing to help. When I first started this thing, that I had a ton of questions. And they were always willing to help. So, I have nothing but good feelings for these people. I think they are really wonderful people. And I have a lot of a respect for him, and I'm just amazed by the level of detail that James Cawley puts in Star Trek Phase 2.
He has got the eye for detail. He does. I
He
mean,
did,
even like
yeah.
the switches on the consoles and all that. He specifically orders the exact
way by the lighting, the acting, the story itself, because I've always liked stories about the people. And, you know, I'm like other fans. I like the, you know, starship battles and all that, but I think it's probably one of the best fan films I've seen simply because it focused on the characters. You know, you see a different side of Spock. You see kind of like a different side of Kirk, and I enjoyed it quite a bit. I think it's a really, really well-made fan film. It's great. Great film.
And it's vastly important to the way Star Trek has been professionalism. By the third episode or so, their production value was something like you were thinking it's an original episode, 60s quality, you know, production level. I mean, they were moving so fast, their attention to detail, but just not to go off for too long here, but to make the point, James Cawley, you've done an amazing thing for all of us. He's been hugely important to the world of Star Trek in general. And none of this would be possible really without him or someone like him having stepped in first and taking it to this big level of profession.
And you know, I got to say that another person I'd like to mention also is Alex Peters. He's always been very, very kind, and he's a really, really nice guy. You know, I've met Alex before in person. We've conversated, and he's always been very, very kind. You know, all the people that I've met related to Star Trek have been really, really kind.
Yeah.
And I would love to meet Jim and Joshua Johnson.
Yeah, that'd be great.
And you know, pick their minds about Starship Exeter, because I believe that they were, you know, their film, the first one, the Savage Empire, was pretty much, I believe, the first one, you know, on a these kind of series. So, you know, they are pretty much, you know, godfathers of Star Trek fan films that opened the door and inspired all of us to make our films.
And also had some pretty good production value. Definitely better than any fan film you'd seen before.
Yeah, you know, I think about the Trisarian intersection, and I think about that shot of them looking at the Congo saucer on that planet. And I'm thinking, wow, you've never seen that, really.
Yeah.
And you know, beaming down in the rain, where they materialize and you see the uniforms actually getting raindrops. I thought, wow, that is so cool. You don't see that.
Yeah.
And you know, it's really exciting to me to see things in Star Trek that we haven't seen versus, you know, 11 movies or 12 movies now.
Yeah.
But all these movies, all these series, if you can put something in there that, you know, hadn't been done.
Obviously, Mike and I do new different stuff in Star Trek Phoenix. That was a good movie. Only succeeded in making its first part of the movie. They wanted to do a two-part movie. Funding, I know, has never actually really panned out for it. But check out Star Trek Phoenix. It's on YouTube. It's really good. And there's some differences Trek-wise. You know, you don't see in Trek, but their effects in post and all that quality, great quality production.
On the flip side of, you know, the fan films reaching a level now where they're almost, you know, and some even Hollywood level production values. The flip side of that is that I feel like fan films that don't have the budget or the means to match what it's almost like a lot of the fans are spoiled a little bit.
Yeah, getting more jaded.
What's done today. So some of the smaller productions don't get as much recognition as some of the larger productions.
Like some of our friends like George Kay at Star Trek and Torres, a great guy.
George does some great storytelling.
Fantastic stories. And, you know, his stuff, when he does, I mean, he films in his apartment, these sets, they're really actually quite good, you know, what he's doing. He should get more recognition. Randy Landers, Project Potemkin.
George is a great guy who makes some. His last episode, and I can't remember the name, but it features another side of the captain where he's actually on a planet to see his. It's a. Did a wonderful job, and he's just a wonderful guy.
Yeah, and his stories are always really heartfelt, very human stories.
And George, it pretty much, you know, to me, if you can't do, you don't have to have the special effects and the budget and all this. All you need is a good story.
Mm-hmm. George is a great example of that, of how you put out a fantastic piece of work with shoestring budget, but the good story. That's
totally agree. Totally agree. Great guy.
Oh, let's move on, because I know we've been wandering for a while, but hey, it's been good wandering. This has been, to me, a real blast so far. Now let me see. Happened to be the old Finnegan from TOS, would it?
Yeah, it's him from the old episode where they go down to the planet and everything they think of comes to life. Shore leave. And that, in my original draft of Legacy, that was not in there. That was actually suggested by director Brady Foster, because we had a problem in the story where I said, we need to give Bishop more of it. I said, there's not enough tension in that scene.
Mm-hmm.
We need to do something to where he has more of a reason to want to command the Valiant.
Mm-hmm.
And Brady says, well, why don't we throw in, that, if he doesn't command, Finnegan's going to get the ship. And we'll kind of go off where, pretty much. But I was a little bit worried because I thought, well, I don't want to make too many references back to the original series, and people don't know who we're talking about if they're not a fan. So Brady was like, well, we'll put it in and see how it comes off. And then there's that scene where Parker does that speech, and she says, "You're not going to get the ship. Think about it. Everything will work out." And you see Bishop look over, and you see the model of the Valiant sitting on the mantle. That was a last-minute thing thrown in, too. And because we had the model in the background already, and I said to Brady, Brady, why don't we have a shot of the model to see that he's looking at it and give him more reason to be thinking about it?
Yeah.
So we did that, and I think it turned out great. And speaking of, that whole scene with Shirley, Shirley's part was actually filmed in Brady's garage in front of a green screen. So, and she was so, that scene was really, really good because she really didn't have a focal point. She was just saying lines and being coached by Ben Richardson on how to deliver the lines. But that was like one of the favorite, she pretty much was one of the favorite characters in the film.
It's a good scene.
I wanted to make her motherly. Now what fans don't know and what we really couldn't put in the film is that after Bishop's mom's death, Shirley acted like a surrogate mother. Okay. Because some people would say, well, an admiral wouldn't do that. Why is she really pushing him into this role? She's not doing her job if she's pushing him into this role, and he's saying no. But, she's like a surrogate mother, much better than she knows, say, another officer. And she knows what he's capable of. But like
to write it in later in other ways.
That's what I told Brady. We'll have to make that link in the next film as to why she was so lenient and so pressing to him, because she's really, really motherly. And in real life, Shirley's really, really a nice lady. Just a wonderful lady. She's actually slated to be in the next episode, and she plays a larger part in the next episode.
Very cool.
Hopefully. But yeah, Finnegan, yeah, he's just a character everybody loves to hate, I guess.
Yeah, and it is a nice touch. It refers to TOS, but it's one that doesn't get in the way. Folks who don't know it, it's really not going to...
Yeah, that's a name where if you heard, you know him, automatically. I didn't want to do it to where he's kind of like a parody, so I thought, well, we could mention him, and mention him would be cool.
Right. Yeah, it was good. I like that touch for sure. Now...
Finnegan?
Yeah.
Captain?
Captain? Wait a minute. Let me wake up, because this is wrong.
he would have said, you're shitting me, right?
Yeah, I'm giving that ship 5-week life expectancy.
I don't want to serve on that ship.
It's going to be full of red shirts only.
And actually, in the next episode, it was written in that Finnegan's father is an admiral in Starship who has this animosity with Bishop because he feels like his son over.
That's not a bad idea, I think.
Yeah, we're debating it, but I think it would. I kind of like stories with a lot of tension.
Yeah. So you can't have drama without conflict and tension.
Yeah.
Now, speaking of drama, an element you did in Legacy on the bridge scene with Lieutenant Kennedy, Bishop is still in his science uniform. He's acting captain already, but most poignantly, he never takes that captain seat. Kennedy does at the end of that scene, but Bishop still never... Or is it serendipity?
Yeah, you picked up on that really good. That was actually something that we wanted to do. Bishop, at this point in the story or in his life, is kind of afraid to sit in the captain's chair. His best friend was the captain. Captain died. As a matter of fact, when he comes over to the ship, his first glance is at the captain's chair. And right after Torres leaves the bridge, you see a shot of him looking over the chair, almost like afraid to look over there. So yeah, we didn't want him to sit in the chair yet. And at the very beginning, that scene where he leaves the science console and goes and puts his arm on the chair and says, "Here's to you, Captain," there was at one time to have him sit in the chair and kind of roll his arms on the handrail. And, a lot of people were asking, well, he's captain now. Why isn't he in the captain's uniform? I didn't really want him to be in the captain's uniform yet. I wanted it to be more of an introduction to the next episode, to when you first see him in the captain's uniform. Because, and another thing too, the way the scene was written, it would have it changed the whole way the scene was written if he'd shown up in the captain uniform, because Kennedy would have already known he was a captain.
Yeah.
So, and he's just not, after we kind of looked at it on as, after your best friend dies, are you really just going to want to go change uniforms and just be, we kind of just saw it as, am I ready for this? My friend died.
Yeah.
The thing that's kind of neat, and maybe, you picked up on that, but a lot of people don't pick up on that, is that I like to think, modestly think that there's a lot of levels to the story that you don't openly see. It covers a whole lot: loss, tragedy, fear. I think, and like I said, not as modestly as I possibly can be, I think Legacy covers a lot of what makes us human. Mm-hmm. I just, it's just from a realistic point, I'm writing this and I'm thinking, well, would you really want to sit in that chair after your friend? That was a place he pretty much lost his life. And it's just that we never planned on him really or uncomfortable being in the chair. We made the chair kind of like a character. He's afraid of the chair. Conversation with Lisa was to establish that, you know, people need each other.
Mm-hmm.
Sometimes we need each other to be strong. We need each other to help us, you know.
Yeah.
Human beings, we're the best when we're together. And that was a scene where I was saying we need to rely on each other. We're strong when we're together. And that's what I wanted to do with the scene. I wanted this show to be as positive as possible. I wanted people to watch it and say, you know, more or less to gain strength from it, to know who we are, what we're capable of, what we can accomplish. Sure, we're sometimes human beings. Humanity is not the greatest in the world. I mean, we see that today. But there's always that dream in me. All that matters is that we're all human and we're stronger when we're together. It's like Kirk said in the Doomsday Machine, we're stronger with you than without you.
Yeah.
And that's pretty much how I feel about it. As a matter of fact, one of the disappointments of making Legacy was that, you know, we had white and black in the film, but I was a little bit disappointed because we couldn't have any other ethnicity in the film because we just really, you know, we didn't have any more sets on the ship. And so when we added this addition to the film that we filmed last week, we actually had an Asian girl and a Hispanic girl. And I was just totally thrilled about that because I wanted to be, Star Trek, you know, it should represent more of the races today or the nationalities today. And I was just thrilled to death. Those characters in this edition. It's just, I'm just overjoyed.
Yeah, and that's great because that really is so important to TOS because, man, what do you see right off the bat? Say maybe not the original pilot of TOS, but in the second one where there's the cast that we know and love forever after that, there was a Russian, there was Sulu, who's, you know, obviously Japanese descent. There was Uhuru, black, Swahili for freedom. There was Scotty, because as Gene said, hey, I couldn't have a ship without a Scot.
The Asian character and the Hispanic character don't have any lines in this edition. But, you know, I wanted to make it, you know, because sometimes people can be disappointed because, you know, they're in a film, but they don't really have any lines and I made it very, very clear that, you know, you girls being in these roles is it's more important than anything you could say. Because people will look at you and they'll say, hey, you know, well, it's nice, you know, we're all together in the future. You have white, black, Asian, Hispanic, and we're working together to make a better future. And I said, that's very, very powerful. And that just speaks volumes of, you know, a future that we could have together. And, you know, I think when they realize that, you know, that you're right. You know, that is what's important. So, you know, I just, But it's nice to know that, you know, we all get along. And I wanted to really stress that fact in Valiant that, you know, it's kind of funny because when, I don't know if you ever go to Trek BBS.
Once in a while.
Every once in a while I go there. And when we released Valiant there, one of the reviewers said, and this was a Caucasian white guy. He said, it's kind of nice to see a fan film that, you know, all the actors aren't white. Well, you know, it was always my goal to put as much diversity as I could in the film. And even Kennedy was supposed to be African American. But then, you know, I put out an ad for an Asian actress, a Hispanic actress. We never got any. But, you know, as long as I've been into this now, I know certain people now, and I've worked on a couple other films, and I got to know some of the extras and some of the actors, and so it was easy this time around. I'm just happy that we have a better representation of the future in this little scene. This scene only run about maybe 4 minutes, but I just think that it's a really good addition to what's going on.
No, very cool. Yeah, I'm totally excited. In fact, I think you had mentioned before you might be giving us a sneak peek of this scene.
This is a scene that features it hasn't been treated for sound or color correction or anything. This is just a raw copy that actually Scott Johnson from Starbase Studios filmed with his iPhone.
Well, I think it sounds pretty exciting to me.
In this scene, Bishop has just had a bad experience in sickbay, and he's kind of reeling from what just happened. And his engineer, Menard, comes in and offers an assessment of what's going on with the ship.
Okay. Let's check it out.
Action.
Commander, communications are out in engineering, as well as half the systems on the ship.
Weapon systems are top priority.
Understood, but, like I said, warp drive systems are out, life support systems are failing, and half the systems in the ship are gone.
The Sukalan have tasted blood. They won't stop now. Start with the weapon system.
Jack, I don't know if I can keep her together. With all due respect, the ship is lost. Abandoning the ship may be the only option.
Abandon ship? Hell no. We're not losing this ship. Not while I'm in command. I don't care what you have to do. Just keep her together. We're not going down without a fight. Dismissed, engineer.
Aye, sir.
Okay. Hey, cool clip, huh? It may be rough, but you saw it here first, and thank you to Mike for that, because that's just awesome.
My pleasure.
Now, is that going to become like part of the storyline itself? Are we going to see like how these refits are happening on the Valiant and these new capabilities and such like that?
That's a good question, because when I wrote the first draft of the second episode, a lot of the technology played into the story. For instance, in Star Trek: The Motion Picture, we hear Decker tell Kirk that the phasers went into antimatter, or the engines went into antimatter and balance and cut off the phasers. Well, there's a scene, we're not gonna upgrade the ship like it was in Star Trek: The Motion Picture. I feel like it should be a gradual thing. Mm-hmm. So we still have the basic design class with around the sails and the spinning original series, Bussard collectors and all. So we'll see things that are very, very early technologically to Star Trek: The Motion Picture. We'll still have the weapon or the engines, the weapons being channeled through the engines to make them stronger. And there's actually a scene in the film where the ship is saved because they channel the weapon, the phasers, through the engines to get more power.
Okay.
And you'll see the technology not work at times. It'll burn out. So it kind of leads up to why the design is so radical in Star Trek: The Motion Picture. It just didn't work with the old design. There's been too many changes. That's one of the things about Star Trek: The Motion Picture. When I saw it, I'm like, my God, they did this in 2.5 years? The ship is basically not the same ship anymore. I mean, it has the same basic design, but
somewhere, is it like?
and we'll also introduce a tactical station like Chekhov's. He just did weapons in Star Trek: The Motion Picture, so we'll actually have a character called Cannon which you heard Bishop scream to in the original film, Cannon, I need weapons. So there'll be a tactical station. And so, yeah, a lot of the tech that you'll see will be leading up to Star Trek the Motion Picture, but
that's cool.
Not nowhere near as advanced as Star Trek the Motion Picture. So it's really
keeping the continuity.
Yeah, it doesn't work all that great sometimes.
That's going to be fun to see.
That leads to a lot of conflict between Menard, the chief engineer, and Kennedy, the first officer. Mm-hmm. And I think animosity between the two of those people, because there's a definite conflict. Even in the first episode, Kennedy's not really happy with Menard. Confrontations, whereas, if you watch Legacy, the only thing that, Kennedy's not in the film a whole lot, but I think the scenes that were written for her are pretty defining of who she is.
Yeah, you know she's important when,
Yeah, she leaves Starfleet Command to come to the ship on her time off. She loves this ship. She wants the ship to be the best it can be. She doesn't like changing the ship to something that she doesn't know it works. So we wrote a scene where she's, confronting Menard by saying, this is off by so-and-so amount %. And it's a real scene where Menard says, I've been a Starfleet engineer for 15 years. I don't need you coming in here telling me how. They don't like each other. You shouldn't have people just, arguing. I wrote that in the draft. Each other like this. And so the draft went to Craig to rewrite, and Craig kind of reinserted that to a certain degree, not as strongly as I put it in. But I'm telling Brady, Brady, I don't care how far in the future we get. Human beings, there's going to be human beings that just don't get along regardless. Yeah. So I'm really believing that scene's going to be in there. I mean,
I think it works out better that way because you've addressed that the conflict exists in Legacy, and then seeing some follow up of that conflict. I think that works out better.
The funny thing is Vance Majors. Have you ever?
I know.
He's playing Menard. I think it's a realistic conflict. I think it's. You don't see in Star Trek. I mean, even in the original series, sometimes the characters didn't get along. Mm-hmm. I mean, sometimes they were downright mean. McCoy telling Kirk, I'll bust you down. You're going to do what I say. I'm the chief medical officer, so it does happen.
Yeah, and McCoy and Spock are the, ultimate love-hate, I mean, McCoy could just be cold and ruthless with Spock. Thankfully, he didn't get too emotional about it.
you feel sorry for Spock sometimes. You're like, dang it, Doc, you're too hard on him sometimes. Jesus. I mean, this is who he is, and you seem to be forgetting he's not human like us, But yeah, I want to keep that scene in because it links these characters together in a way that, it's kind of nice, kind of refreshing to me to know. Perfect. And there's even, and
filled that void and made it like in the Trek universe of saying, hey, we have to address the fact that people have conflict and people aren't all good and there's going to be some gray area.
And that was one of the earlier criticisms about The Next Generation, was that we just got along too well. Mm. And I can, from Gene Roddenberry's standpoint and all that, I can understand that. It's not the way I would do Star Trek, but at the same time, I can understand where he was coming from. He's trying to say we're to a point now where we get along.
Yeah.
We don't need to argue and bicker. So I understand where he was coming from. But living today, maybe I don't have the insight to look that far and to think that we're not going to one day be like that. And even Gene Roddenberry said, what we experienced today. He said in interviews, he said.
Mm-hmm.
Than to just say that none of this stuff's happening and all that, and we get along. But But I wanted there to be a conflict between Menard and Kennedy, and the pinnacle of that was the ship itself. They both loved the Valiant, and they're both very protective of the Valiant, but they both disagree on how. It's like two parents; they disagree on how to raise a child.
Yeah.
And
But
Craig actually,
you can see that happening with the first officer and the chief engineer. You can easily see that happening.
Craig rewrote that scene, and there's actually a scene in this film where Bishop says, "You know, what are you guys at? You guys at each other's throat again? This has got to." It's really sickening. I think it adds. I mean, it gets to a point where it's just when I think, the captains had. It adds a lot of drama to the story.
I'm looking forward to it.
It's more easier as an audience for us to look at a film and like The Next Generation and say, oh yeah, we're getting along. But then you see these two officers that don't like each other and you're like, yeah.
That's more like,
yeah.
I know how that is, yeah.
So I tend to write.
So at work.
I tend to write today, and Brady tends to write in the future. So I think it makes a great balance between the two of them. Because when I wrote this scene that we're adding to the film, there's actually a scene where Bishop's all upset, and he gets a beep on the communicator because communications are down in the ship. And he answers the communicator and he says, yeah. and Brady changed that to say Bishop here. And he said, well, why did you have Bishop saying yeah? I said, because it's never been done in Star Trek. And I said, at this point, he don't care.
Yeah, it's going to happen.
I mean, yeah, but, that's where, the conflict comes between Brady and I, where we just have two different. I think overall we agree on what Star Trek is, but I think we have differences in how to
approach it.
Yeah, because I thought the yeah line was really good.
Yeah.
Because I thought it was something that people would look at and say, "Wow."
I can.
And I thought it said volumes about the character who we're dealing with here. I mean, he's just it's a bad situation they're in, and I just thought that yeah fit perfectly. Like, yeah, what do you want? Leave me alone.
Yeah, I'm a little busy, damn it.
But here's the thing: we recorded Bishop saying yeah. So when you see Bishop saying Bishop here. This add-on, you'll know what one was put in.
Okay.
But I hope it's the yeah.
I'd like that too, to say, Joshua, Jim, and also James, they've all taken that approach a bit with their portrayals of the captains. Exeter and Phase 2. I loved James's Kirk. He had some flavor that Shatner's Kirk didn't have that I loved about it, and part of that was, he could just get irritated sometimes, but, and you saw that with Exeter too, a lot more of the, you're not always going to be on your best behavior. So, yeah, I think it's great. Pick it up. What do you want? Yeah, what?
I mean, a lot of times we do things that, we think about after we do them. Mm-hmm. That's why we go back and say, hey, man, I'm sorry. I didn't mean that. Yeah. We just react sometimes without thinking. And that's not a thing. You tell that to kids all the time. You need to think about what you're saying before you say it. Well, a lot of times grown-ups do the exact same thing. So.
Yeah. I don't think we're worse about it.
Yeah, I don't think it's out of bounds that a Starfleet captain would just react. I mean, there's a scene in A Taste. I don't remember the name of it, but it's the one where Core was in the episode. Mm-hmm. Organia with these Klingon troops, and one of them pushes Kirk, who's in disguise. would have been killed.
Yeah.
And, just a gut reaction. It was a crazy thing for Kirk to do. But, that was just a knee-jerk reaction. I think that's just part of us being human.
Yeah,
So
and that's part of good writing is to show. That's part of being human.
I don't think the yell line is totally outrageous. I don't think anybody would be like, yeah.
Well, I think they absolutely get what you were doing with that. I think that makes its point pretty clear. Now, you had mentioned earlier you've had some award nominations. If you want to tell us about your nominations and any wins.
Well, unfortunately, no wins.
Yet.
This was the first annual, well, they're hoping it'll be an annual thing where fan films are awarded. Who did the show, and he's hoping to do one every year. We were nominated for Best Visual Effects, and we were nominated for Best Dramatic Presentation in a short form, and then we were nominated for Best Actress, and that was April Chamberlain from Lieutenant Torres.
Okay.
But unfortunately, like I said, we didn't win any. But, it was nice to be nominated.
Yeah, I mean, the nominations, that's huge. There's a lot of competition. Getting nominated is big in itself.
I tend to stay positive for everything. I mean, even though we didn't win, at least, that brings a little bit more recognition to Starship Valiant. Oh. And I've always said, when I get a letter from a veteran talking about the film, I mean, I actually got had a child, a comment from a guy who said that the deck officer wouldn't allow him to go home, so he missed the first year of his child's life. Wow. And he said that it just tore his friend up. I mean, just emotionally, just broke him down. And he said, I feel like your story really, really hit home. That, even though we are shipped overseas, the real heroes are the people we leave behind. Mm-hmm. So when you get letters like that, you're just like, no amount of award can match what people say about your story, and it's all just it makes it all worthwhile when
it really made an impact.
I never really felt that the film would bring up those kind of emotions in people, and I mean it just goes on and on. I had a guy who letter about just brought me to tears. He said didn't have anything to do with it. He had been instructed, and that came about because of the way Bishop. It's just incredible to me what this story evokes in people.
You and really hit something.
I really felt badly for the guy. I mean, I'm sitting here trying to think of how to respond to that, and I just said, I'm so sorry that this is going on with you and your son. I really hope that in the future you two can come together and work out your problems. But from his letter, it didn't sound like it was going to happen. But it's just sad. The way that some people have felt when watching this movie. I never meant it to make people,
Yeah. But it's, I mean, at the same time,
when we premiered the film at SoonerCon, we didn't have a real big audience, and I think a lot. And I was trying to push for Saturday because, Friday, a lot of people was at work.
Saturday's the day, pretty much.
Or at least after 5 on Friday, but we didn't get that date. And I remember when we were watching the film, lights came on and there was a young lady who was teary-eyed. She was wiping her eyes, and I just thought, wow, that's incredible.
Mm-hmm. It's art, man. Congratulations. You are evoking emotional response.
That's what we wanted.
Mm-hmm.
But, so far, the consensus has been that it's a film that's brought up a lot of emotion in people, and they feel like we never wanted in the film. I don't know if Brady wanted to stay as far as he could away from green screen.
Oh, I recognize it.
Yeah,
I've been looking at you the whole time, but yeah, okay,
There's
definitely.
a fireplace and the monitor above the fireplace.
Yeah.
The chair Bishop sat in.
Absolutely.
So we wanted a lived-in home. Now, for budgetary reasons, at first we kind of wanted a more of an exotic location, but when it came down to it, we didn't have the time or the money. So we just settled for, people in the 23rd century, they probably have houses that were inherited from the grandparents and all this. So, and then in generations, Kirk had an old cabin.
Mm-hmm.
So we wanted everything to be kind of lived in.
Mm-hmm.
But we were worried that being the way the original series looked, a home like this today would kind of be, and how the chair comfortable and lived in, and so everything worked out really, really well. So we were pleasantly surprised by how the film was received. There's always going to be people that don't like something, but out of 200 and something likes on YouTube, we've only gotten 14 thumbs down. And it's
they're probably not people who really watch Star Trek anyway.
Well, a lot of people didn't like some people didn't like the pacing. They didn't like the fact that, some people have just said, there needs to be more battles and more action but that's.
It's like, okay. Yeah.
Our outlook was that, you're getting that in other fan films. We don't have to be like other fan. We'll just tell the story that way. But yeah, we had a good time doing what we did, and we're proud of what we were able to do.
Now, I'm going to diverge a bit, and I'm going to go ahead and hit on some lighter, more general sci-fi questions for us just to have some fun with towards the end of this fantastic interview. This has really been a lot of fun. This has been one of the best Mondays I've had in years. So now, let's see. I have here, who are some of your biggest sci-fi influences?
Oh, I would say the biggest would probably be Rod Serling. I think that he is just a genius.
Mm-hmm.
I think that a lot of what we see today, the Twilight Zone done years ago. Recently, me and my wife watched all the episodes. And I'm just impressed by the vision and the imagination that Rod Serling and a lot of the writers had back in those days to bring these stories to life. And a lot of them were just human drama, human conflict. Some of the best of them were just human nature stories.
Mm-hmm.
And I just think that's a show that just has not been outdone today.
And it really is the first science fiction series on American television.
Yeah,
I've done my work, and I can't find one on American TV that predates it. So basically, Rod is our grandfather of sci-fi, on television series at least, here in the States.
Of course, there's Gene Roddenberry, who just had this vision that we can all put together and equal. Like a future like that.
And especially at the time it was written in the late 60s, came out in 66, and man, boy, were you talking about a country in conflict then.
I mean, the guy, Roddenberry is kind of an unsung hero because, he fought for things on television that, that studios were against.
Mm-hmm.
And, the thing about Star Trek is somebody asked me a while back, why do you like Star Trek so much? And I remember being a young kid, maybe like 7 or 8, and I saw the episode, Let This Be Your Last Battlefield. guy black on one side, white on the other side, and then the other guy
was that I was watching that show. They were all different room. Kirk, Spock, McCoy, Scotty, they're sitting in there, and the ambassador, or the guy, was the one that's running was called Lokai, and then we had Ambassador Beale, who was searching for him, trying to catch him. And Spock says to Beale, "Why? What's the problem with you? Basically, what's the problem with you guys? Why don't you like each other? You're the same species." And Beale says, "Ambassador or Commander Spock, are you blind? He's black on this side, and I'm white on this side."
Yeah.
And the look that Spock and Kirk give each other, where this is just like so foreign, like what the hell?
Yeah, what? I don't get it. What?
Yeah, what is this? What does that matter? That stuck with me as a kid. And what you are, I mean, as far as no matter what you look like on the outside. And that just stuck with me these many years. That was just one of the most, this is an episode that doesn't get really too much praise from fans, but I thought that was one of the most poignant moments in Star Trek. That subtle look that they gave each other, like, these guys are crazy.
Yeah. Yeah.
It doesn't matter. And just the look alone, I just remember that from a kid, and that just pretty much, I'm thinking, wow, that's just incredible. And
it was a really deep scene. I mean, I remember too, I saw it the first time when I was a kid, also in the 70s, early 70s. And
so I like
still
the
remember
positive.
The first time I saw it, and every time I've watched it since, it's like
the positive things of Star Trek. So much that the show had to say about humanity. I get it. They just don't get it. They don't take advantage of their property.
Well, what was this? I was just reading. It's been covered in a few articles, but talking back again about Orsi being basically fired because his script was, quote, too Star Trek-y.
Yeah.
I was like, okay, WTF on that. How do you get too Star Trek-y on a Star Trek film? What, did he go back to the roots too much, It's this whole idea of, like, we want to please everybody with this movie.
And then they're saying making it like a Avengers franchise and was possible. So I don't get it. But I mean, I understand. But they're just
business model, which is a big part of the problem, because if they take these massive budgets and chop them down to make, say, several episodes or something like that, TV specials or something, I mean, they're gonna make a killing. They're gonna get huge viewership. They're gonna get huge DVD sales. I mean, even if you want to go with online content with it, of course, like behind the scenes and stuff, you get huge amounts of advertisement off of posting something like that on YouTube if you're Paramount. I mean, it's the old business model. They need to break away from that. You don't need to go all JJ Trek and flash everything out and try and create a whole new audience.
I agree. It's just a sure win. It's a sure thing. I was a little bit disappointed. I was a little bit disappointed when they announced the director of the film. I'm like, really?
Yeah.
The Fast and the Furious director? But okay.
Yeah. The only thing that I've liked in recent news was that Simon Pegg's been trying to do a good job of keeping it as a proper Star Trek script and film. Besides that, I have not heard really much that is going to send me to the theater. which would be the only one I haven't seen from release, which would be, when was the first one? 1979? 1978? I've seen them all in the theater since then. This would be the first one where I've actually been thinking, I might not go see that one in the theater.
Yeah, I've actually saw, even the new one. I saw them in the theater. I thought it because I felt that they lied. I felt that they, this isn't about... It wasn't about the Kirk and the characters that we knew in the original series. It was an alternate universe. So I was really disappointed by that.
I did appreciate the cleverness of that writing. I mean, I did like that. But they opened up a fantastic world of potential for themselves, which they have not used properly, I think, in their writing. Now, of course, there's a lot wrong, you could say, with the first movie, technically, with science in general, or, how it relates back to original Trek, but overall, yeah, I'd say I was more pleased with it than displeased by far. The second one, though, I think was just
the first one I felt like they kind of reneged on their promise that these at times it had quite a bit of heart because they weren't. I didn't hate the film. I enjoyed it, but when at the end of the day, I just didn't feel like it was Star Trek.
Yeah, no, it doesn't have that feel. It doesn't have that. It doesn't take you to that same place that you've been escaping to for decades in those Star Trek films. It's a completely different world.
But the second one, I was just, there's so many lapses in science in that, and
yeah, that's not even funny. Let's move on because, damn, I mean, we could do a whole episode on JJ Trek,
Filmmaker. I always hate the favorites thing because there's so many people that I like. I've always liked Steven Spielberg, especially in his earlier days when he first started making films. I thought that he was really, really just incredible filmmaker when he first started, but now his films just seem a little bit kind of general now. But back in the day, Steven Spielberg, I loved his stuff. Robert Wise, I think he made some great films.
And which films? Give us. Oh, what a surprise! Another technical issue? Okay, well, we're over it, and we're moving on. There's something that Mike wants to tell us about, and it's something called Baratus. You want to tell us about that?
I thought I'd take this time to plug good friends of mine. John Hughes is directing Star Trek Ajax first fan film, and Charlie England, also known as J.C. England, is actually the story writer behind it. And Star Trek Baratus is a film that basically is, I would say, really in the spirit of the original series. Mm-hmm. And it's a crossover film that'll feature the crew of the Valiant transporting Commodore Boone, who's actually going to be the star of the Ajax films, and sort of a prequel episode that sets up, his commanding the Starship Ajax and all that. And we've actually, a couple of months ago, filmed half of the bridge. Well, actually, we filmed, I would say, 3/4 of the bridge scenes, and we're getting together this weekend to film the final bridge scene, some pickup shots, more or less. Mm-hmm. And the bridge scene will be complete. I'm not so sure on how long it'll be before the film is released because there's still a few more scenes needing to be filmed outside the bridge. But so far, it's a pretty nice story. Nice play on the original series. Some decent, colorful characters. I've seen some of the footage. Looks good. And we're looking forward to seeing it when it's released.
Cool. Yeah, and I'll definitely keep up on that. And we'll try and put any links in the description below.
There's a few pictures of the production on the Valiant Facebook page.
Fantastic.
And then of course you can go to Starship Ajax page on Facebook and follow the production to let you know what's going on it also.
Okay. In the description, Star Trek Ajax and the Valiant Facebook page.
Yeah. J.C. England, the story writer, has done a really good job with the story. I think it's definitely a good play on the original series. I think it's a really nice story.
Yeah, I'll be looking forward to it because I also enjoy when indie Trek shows do crossovers. I think that's a lot of fun. George just did that recently with his latest episode too.
Yeah, he. I know Kenneth Thompson. I don't know if you've ever talked to him, but he's the creator of Starship Saladin.
Mm-hmm.
And he has I think he handles the visual effects for Starship Antilles.
Okay.
And he and George are really good friends. And Kenneth Thompson's actually been in Katoomba.
Okay, nice.
2 episode. Yeah,
he plays episode.
He plays one of the high-ranking captains that beams over with Gio Gerard.
In the beginning?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that's a great scene. Great scene. Oh, now, you, speaking of footage and stuff, on your YouTube channel, for people who, want more Starship Valiant, let me get a little closer to the mic here, you have just a boatload of extra footage and behind-the-scenes stuff.
Yeah. Being my first film, man, I wanted to just tape everything, and that's just a small portion of what's on the channel. I have so much personal stuff from the making of that film, and there's actually the latest video on there is one featuring Star Trek or Trek Atlanta.
Oh, cool.
Yeah,
very cool.
Actually, Alex Peters is on there, and he says some really nice, kind things about Starship Valiant.
Nice.
So you have to give that a look. Him and one of the judges actually speak about Valiant, and it was pretty nice what they had to say.
Cool. Yeah, well, I'm going to make sure that, again, down here in the description, there's going to be links to your YouTube channel with all that extra footage, because really, folks, it's a lot of fun. I mean, there's a lot of great stuff to watch there that, you're not going to see otherwise. Take the time to watch it. It's fun, especially if you like Valiant, if you like what Mike and the crew have been doing, and I don't see it. If you didn't, you wouldn't be watching.
I have to give a plug to a good friend named Jeff, who actually runs our Facebook page. He's constantly updating and adding stuff, and he's just, he doesn't really, he's not into, getting credit for anything, or he just does it, but he does a great job of keeping the page in the public eye. So
what's his last name?
Thank you, Jeff. Jeff Kintro.
Jeff Kintro, thank you.
Yeah.
Everybody thanks you, man. Good job.
He did our latest update.
Cool. Well, man, if there's nothing else, would you like to add? It'd be about something.
No, just in closing, I would just like to say, I would like to thank all the fan films that came before us. Even to all those films that were literally made in people's garage with, just 8mm camera when they were making Star Trek fan films we'll never see. All you guys that, I like to give you thanks because I think that your films are relevant. I think that they made a difference. I think that they're part of keeping the spirit of Star Trek alive. I wish that Gene Roddenberry was here to see how this has affected us and how we're able to honor him by making these shows. And because ultimately, I think he would be very, very proud to see how far fans have come. I think he'd just be overjoyed.
I agree.
And some great people behind these films. I appreciate them all. And I think I'd just like to say thank you to all the fan filmmakers who've inspired us to do what we do with our films. And that includes all of them.
Well, that is an absolutely great and proper sentiment on that. I think that deserves a double LLAP.
I agree.
Okay, man. Well, I'll tell you what, it's been a blast. I look forward to talking to you next time. And all you out there, check the descriptions. If you haven't seen Valiant, go watch it. It's in the descriptions. If you want to see the behind-the-scenes footage, it's in the descriptions. And as far as the bonus content, well, that's just here, but keep watching the behind the scenes stuff, Anyways, everybody, thanks